Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a very early look at some of the contenders for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And speaking of the Breeders' Cup, you do want to check out the packages that we've got if you're going to start preparing to do your Breeders' Cup handicapping. If you want to check out those early PPs, when the pre-entries come out, you can get them in our Breeders' Cup packages, and you can save $38 on the value of everything included in both the Players package and the VIP package. Just do note, the VIP package is where you can get those valuable clock reports from Mike Welsh and his team, which is a great resource to use in handicapping the Breeders' Cup races for those full cards at Del Mar on Friday and Saturday. So make sure to check out more information about that at shop.drf.com or by using that QR code on screen. Well, Mike, we're going to focus on the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. This is always kind of a weird division at the Breeders' Cup because there are not that many races in this division throughout the year that have implications towards, well, it's not a championship. I mean, there's the Met Mile, and then you basically get to the Dirt Mile at the end of the year is basically major races in this division. So you have some horses that are stretching out from sprint, some that are turning back that maybe tried to make it in the classic division, they couldn't quite, or some that missed a lot of time and are coming back off layoffs. And that's the case for the horse that is listed first on this list. And you could see my early morning line for this race. I think if Nisos does actually make it to the starting gate in this Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, he probably is going to go favored because he has showed a level of talent that probably puts him on another plane from all of the others that are pointing towards this race. You just have to be a little concerned, Mike, that we haven't seen that much of this horse on the track this year. But when we have seen him, he's been good, as in the last race that we'll take a look at, the San Diego from this summer at Del Mar.
Yeah, exactly. This is a stretch out for this horse around 2 turns. And boy, yeah, I mean, exactly what you would want to see. I mean, I think ostensibly this was sort of supposed to be a prep for the Pacific Classic to stretch him all the way out to see if he could make it to the Classic. And he did not make the Pacific Classic, missed a little time after that race. And so the Breeders' Cup Classic is out the window, David. This horse, in my opinion, is one of the most talented horses in the country. So all the things that you pointed about him are true. Missing time, he's not reliable to make races, and there are obviously issues here. If he makes this race, he is going to be really, really hard for this field to beat.
And at the end of the day, Mike, a mile is probably his best distance anyway. I think the Classic would have been a real test for him, and obviously we would have found out about that in the Pacific Classic. None of that obviously panned out. He's missed time. He's had gaps in his workouts. He's had issues. I will just note we're recording this the second week in October. It already looks like he's missed a workout this week, so you just want to follow along to make sure that Nisos actually does make the starting gate and can train consistently up to this Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. But if Bob Baffert can hold him together before this race at the beginning of November, and he makes it to the starting gate, he's going to be awfully tough to beat. But he probably will line up against the winner of the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile last year. That is Full Serrano, who got ranked second on this list at 9-2 odds. And Mike, this is a horse that is probably just best going the mile distance. They've tried to stretch him out a couple of times to see if he belongs in a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic. They did it most recently in the Goodwood. He got a little tired, but let's take a look at the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile last year when he got the job done over what was a pretty competitive field, and he went fast early and was able to hold them off late.
It's a really good performance from this horse at the Breeders' Cup last year, and he's going to get to come right back over the same track to try it again, David. This horse, he ran really well in here, maybe a little bit under the radar leading into the Breeders' Cup last year. If I had to, have any qualms about him this year to defend his title, I would say I wish we had seen maybe a little bit more of him as a 6-year-old, but I thought he looked really good off the layoff 2 starts back. I know it was just an allowance race. I thought he looked really good winning that race. And I think more than anything else, the Goodwood just proved he doesn't really want to go that far. He's better going shorter.
And like I said earlier, we've got some horses that were aiming at the Classic division who are probably going to get turned back in this Dirt Mile, not because a mile is their best distance, but probably just because it's a more winnable spot with the Classic coming up so tough this year. And that could be the path that the connections of Locked decide to take. And Locked did look like a horse that was going to be a major player in the Breeders' Cup Classic when he won the Santa Anita Handicap earlier this year. Things haven't quite panned out for him through the spring and the summer. He did get back to the winner's circle in this race that we'll take a look at last time in the Woodward, and he only beat a couple of rivals here. They are good rivals in Phileas Fogg and Post Time, but you had to like the way that Locke at least finished off the race a little more strongly than he had in his last couple of races. But Mike, at this stage of Locke's career, do you think a mile is really the best distance for him?
I mean, I really don't. It'll be interesting to see what happens if they do run him in this race, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, because I listen, he's got the Cigar Mile on his card, and he actually did run really well to win that race, a 1-turn mile toward the end of last year. But I don't know, David, based on everything I've seen from him so far as a 4-year-old, I don't know how this is really going to work out for him. I appreciate the fact that he got back on track last time and was able to run that field down. But if I'm being honest, I wasn't blown away by that performance. And he's the kind of horse I can just see, cutting back to him. I can just see him getting totally outpaced early.
Yeah, the horses cutting back that were aiming towards the Classic, Mike, I think one that might actually fly under the radar a little bit, strange to say about a Kentucky Derby winner, but Mystic Dan is a horse that I don't hear attracting a lot of buzz coming into the dirt mile, but I'm just fine with him going the mile distance. And while he's not as good as the top players in that older horse division, the Sierra Leones and Fiercenesses of the world, he's run just fine. He's gotten back to his Kentucky Derby winning form as a 4-year-old. And if he makes it to the starting gate, let's say a horse like Nisos doesn't, I think Mystic Dan might fit pretty well against this field.
Agree with all that. Agree that the mile distance is probably a really good one for him. Agree that he's gotten back into form now as a 4-year-old after seeming to totally go off form right after the Kentucky Derby last year. He's back in good form now. This distance works for him. He can get the right trip in this kind of a race too. I agree with you. This horse is really interesting.
Yeah, we could say the same thing about White Abario, who's handled shorter distances in the past. He's versatile enough to win graded stakes going as short as 7 furlongs or out to 1.25 miles. He is a former Breeders' Cup Classic winner. White Abario has not been in the best form this year, Mike, but he's another horse with plenty of back races that he will occasionally show up with that could put him in the winner's circle in a spot like this.
Very true. I do think shorter distances probably work better for White Abario than longer distances do. I do really question what kind of form he's in right now, though.
Let's flip over to the second page of contenders for this dirt mile and some horses that are going to be bigger prices down towards the bottom of this list. I mean, maybe a horse that we should consider, Mike, is the 3-year-old Citizen Bull, who obviously was a little disappointing through the early part of the year. He was last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, never kind of went on with it after that, but he did get back to the winner's circle in this most recent start that we'll take a look at, going the 1 mile distance at Del Mar in the Shared Belief. Now, he's only beating 2 rivals this day. It was kind of a paid workout, but I do think that this horse might be at his best going this 1 mile distance, and speed is the name of the game with him, and that can be dangerous over this 1 mile course at Del Mar.
That's true. He does seem like a horse who's at his best when he can make the lead, and so that would be key for him in a race like the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. I don't know what you're supposed to do with that race that we just watched there, David. Obviously, it's just a prep, but what could he possibly have really gotten out of that thing? I mean, the horse that was second, it was basically a match race because his stablemate Gaming, who finished last in there, he was a complete no-show and he did not run a step. So this horse, all he had to do was beat the long shot, Smooth Cruising.
Yeah, Mike, and I'll be honest, I'm somebody who likes to poo-poo the dirt mile. It's a race that, as a Breeders' Cup purist, I don't really know if it it belongs in the 14 races because it doesn't have a real championship at the end of the year. But this field is kind of cool if it holds together as we're looking at it now, because you've got a former winner of the dirt mile, you've got a former Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, you've got a former Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Now, maybe we're on the downside of that best form, but it would be an interesting matchup of those horses coming in from all different divisions. So we'll see if this field holds together as it looks right now, a few weeks before entries come out for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment down below to let us know who you're looking forward to seeing in this Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And make sure to hit that subscribe button for the Daily Racing Farm YouTube channel to not miss any updates that we've got coming around the Breeders' Cup this year.